So this is my spoiler-filled discussion on A Little Hatred, the first book in the Age of Madness trilogy by Joe Abercrombie. I read this book about a week and a half ago. Unfortunately, usually when I do a spoiler chat, I try to record it right after finishing it, like within a day or two, because my memory sucks, and I didn't. So if I forget to talk about something that I should talk about here, please feel free to chat about it in the comments. But let's talk about this book, because I loved it. If you would like a spoiler-free chat about it, I will link the reading vlog where I read this book, because I gave spoiler-free thoughts there, but this is the spoiler discussion, so spoilers ahead. Like I said in the spoiler-free vlog, I love to see how Abercrombie has tied in the events and the progress of the world from previous books into this new trilogy. I love to see stuff like old events becoming legend, as well as the way Joe develops characters off-page. He's done this in other books previously, or previous to this one as well, where a character that we haven't seen for a long time shows up again in the story, and he doesn't age people gracefully. He doesn't age people kindly or generously. He ages them according to how they might age in this world. Meaning every now and then there's some progress, but oftentimes it's just what it is. These characters have experienced a lot of life since the last time we saw them. And I loved seeing so many characters that I have loved in previous books, people that I know and that I care about and I'm excited to see again. And I said this in my spoiler-free vlog. I traditionally, constantly, always do not like sequel series. I find that if it's not planned from the start, if an author writes a trilogy or a series and then says the end, and then moves on, and then years later says, I could milk it a little bit more, and comes back, which I don't think that was the tone of Joe coming back. I'm sure he just felt he had another story to tell. But like sometimes that's how it feels, and it doesn't feel like there's another story to tell. It just feels like the author wants to bring back some favorites to cash in on nostalgia, which I suppose is a pretty jaded way of looking at it, but that's how it feels sometimes with sequel series. So I went into this really hopeful, but also fully expecting it to not live up to the First Law trilogy. And I was so pleasantly surprised, because these characters that I love and that I was thrilled to see again, and thrilled to see where they are at this stage in their life, they did shine, and it was wonderful to check in on them again, but it wasn't like they overshadowed the next generation. It wasn't like the next generation was there to pretend that we had a new story to tell, but really it was about the ones that we have nostalgia for. It really, the characters that we followed in this book took the spotlight. They stood on their own, and Joe did such an amazing job of creating these new characters, this next generation, and making them all so compelling in and of their own right, that I was not focused on these characters that I was excited to see at the beginning, even though I'm very invested in them. I'm excited to follow this new story. He's proven me wrong. He's proven me wrong in my jaded view of sequel series, and I'm very happy about that. So because Joe is a character author and because I am a character reader, I'm going to talk about characters. Everybody that's a new member of this cast, I think in and of their own right is fantastic to follow, and I love them all. Savine and Orso are my favorites. But anyway, Rika has these visions, and I love that it's fantastical, but it's also natural enough that, you know, they call it fits, and it doesn't feel like magic to the world. You could write it off. You could rationalize it away, but it is distinctly magic. And I'm fine with prophecies. I think it's okay as long as it's done well, but it's not traditionally something that I look forward to. I'm pretty sure this is the first time Abercrombie has done a prophecy in one of his books, and I do like the way Rika's visions work. I like that it's not a clear vision, it's not a clear, this is where we should go. It's never used as just a plot convenience. It's very abstract. She doesn't always know exactly what it means, and she's never really sure what exactly she's supposed to do about it, which makes it fun because it means that sometimes you can shock the reader by making them think the vision means one thing and it means something totally different. Or you can theorize about, okay, what's this one mean? I love her personality. I love her rough and tumble, this is just the way it is and I'm apologizing to no one kind of personality. She had some of the best scenes, like the circle battle and when she met the first of the Magi. And I love that she and Savine are very much opposites in their personality and in the way they react to the world and what they find value. But at the end, or near the end, when their perspectives meet and they trade necklaces, they like actually develop a bit of a bond, and the boys develop a bit of a bond. And it's like, I loved the perspectives meeting in this book. But I also love where you have Savine who says, you know, I've lived in riches and wealth and privilege and, you know, getting what I want and having all the power, and then I went to the slums and I went through hell, and then I came out of it saying, I'm gonna keep my wealth, I'm gonna hoard it harder because I'm not gonna be put in that position again, right? Like, Savine didn't have this amazing arc where she's like, oh, I pity the poor, I'm going to be generous all the time. She's like, no, I'm keeping this for me because I don't want to be put in that position again, which I love. And then you've got Rika, who is, you know, grew up in the camps, who grew up in this kind of situation, and then she's like, you know what I've learned? Follow the winner. Like, it's still, Abercrombie doesn't create characters that have some sort of noble arc. He just creates characters that respond to the world about as realistically as a human might. And I do quite like that about him. That's not to say that there's no nobility in anyone, and that's not to say that nobody ever has any sort of gratifying arc, but I like that it's a mix of both, that these characters don't go the route that's expected in literature, but they go the route that a human might go. Speaking of Savine, no, I want to talk about Glocta next, because it was lovely to see Glocta again. Always happy to see him. He's my favorite little torture fella. But I loved seeing him in a dad role. It was shockingly satisfying to see him, you know, going, that's my girl, and like really genuinely loving on his daughter, even when she was not so kind to him after she found out that he wasn't her biological father and secrets have been kept from her. He was still just so very Glocta, but I don't know, he's just a very strangely endearing father, more than I would have ever expected from him. It was also, you know, all of them were wonderful. It was great seeing Dogman, Pike, Shivers, wonderful. It was great seeing all of them again and seeing what they've gotten up to and where their stories have led them. Except for Giselle. I feel real bad for Giselle. He's had it rough. His wife hates him, is not kind really to him or to Orso. I love her. I really do. I love her character. I can't remember her character now off the top of my head, but I loved her character just to follow because I found her fascinating, but she's not kind to her family in many ways. But he's got that going for him. It's the fact that he's a ruler that's essentially not able to rule, not really, he doesn't hold any of the power that you would think that he would. He has to watch his daughter be fathered by somebody else. And he gets such a mundane death. he gets such a, like, it's not even, and that's so Abercrombie, that he wouldn't, like, a character that I really care about, that I really want to follow and see what happens with, like, he's just killed in his sleep, probably poisoned. It's such an Abercrombie kind of way to kill somebody that I would like to see where his life goes, or see him die in some, you know, big way. It's just like, no, he's gone now. He's not in the story anymore. Also, Orso's gonna have to lead. That'll be interesting. I don't know, I just feel bad for him, you know? Like, I really do think that he could have been a good king if it weren't for Baez. You know who I'm talking about. I think he could have potentially been a good king, and he just got dealt every bad card. Speaking of him, I do find him very interesting. I find it interesting how much power he has with the banking system behind him, and I don't know, it seems like maybe he's gonna try to abolish the monarchy. Possibly. I mean, this is a post-industrialization time. So I don't know. Am I just way off there? I might be way off there. I mentioned Savine. I'd like to talk about her a little bit more. I loved her from the very beginning, from my first scene with her, where she's just with her fan and people are approaching her with their business ideas, with the things that they'd like for her to fund, and she just, with a flick of her fan, ruins their dreams, and the amount of power that she has and how she just doesn't care about people. And I felt like I followed her perspective the most closely. Everything she went through throughout the entire ordeal, I just really felt for her. And then seeing her come back, and now how she's so dependent on the pearl dust, you know, like obviously I mentioned that she's wanting to make sure that she's never put in that position, that kind of position again, but she still has this addiction that could still potentially steal everything from her. You know, this could ruin her life. Addictions do sometimes. So I'm really curious to see where her story goes, especially because not only has she got all this trauma and PTSD that she's trying to push down with her pearl dust, she's got a lot of trauma that she needs to work through, but then on top of that, she fell in love. Oh no, she fell in love. We'll talk about that in a minute. So she's mourning the loss of that. She's with Leo now, which I don't hate that pairing. I don't see it lasting. We'll see what that does. We'll talk more about the matchups in a minute. Really, the switching back and forth, the mirroring perspectives of Savine and Orso were, I think, my favorite parts of the book, because they're my two favorite perspectives, my two favorite characters of our new cast. I love them both so much, but it really does feel like he feels like the son of Giselle, you know? And also you can see how he kind of became the way he is, with the way his mom treats him and never being good enough, always being hypercritical of him, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And keep trying to talk about the coupling. When he and Savine finally gets to her, when he finally arrives, and he just pours his heart out to her, and he tells her how much he loves her, and he commits to himself, I'm going to be a better man for her. This is it. This is my turning point. And I believe him. I don't believe him at all, obviously, because I know that it's all gonna implode. But it's like, it's so frustrating, because this is actually, I'm not even a romance reader. I don't even like romance in my stories 95% of the time. Like, it's rare that I'm going to care how any sort of couple ends up. But with these two, I cared. He made me care about an incestuous relationship. They didn't know. It's not their fault. He made me care. I actually found myself sometimes forgetting about the situation they were in and rooting for them. That's not okay, Joe. And I don't know, man. I'm just like, when she told her mom, she's like, I'm in love. I'm gonna get married. It's happening. And then she told her mom it was Orso, and her mom was like starting to react. I was like, shut up, don't say it. Just don't say anything. Don't tell her. Oh, and then she had to send him, here I am, I'm talking about it. I said I'd get to it later. I'm obviously just going to talk about it right now. And she had to send him the letter, just like the one sentence or two sentence, I don't remember, letter of just, it's not going to happen. Don't contact me again. She can't even tell him why. She can't even give him a proper breakup. She has to just act like she doesn't want it, and he just has to get over it. So they're both rebounding with like a couple swap, which is weird. Not intentionally, again. But like, they can't catch a break, or no one can catch a break. And then both the guys notice that the girls are wearing each other's necklaces, and they're like, what? Oh, I won't think about it. Let's just move on. But anyway, dadgummit, Joe. It's actually a happy romance. Like, if this were a romance book, that would be the climax, and then like happily ever after. But it's an Abercrombie book, so instead it's incest and everybody loses, including me. Oh man, it's so funny because I knew it was coming, right? And yet it still hurt. It still hit. It still was devastating. I don't know what you're gonna do about it now, Joe. What are you gonna do? Where are you gonna go with this? I don't know. Royalty's already pretty incestuous in that time, hey? Like, this is French Revolution kind of time. Maybe not half, brother. Maybe that's too much. Anyway, now Orso is gonna be, I mean, now his dad's dead and he's being thrust into the throne. And it's like, here's the thing, is I felt so bad for him because he proclaims, I'm a changed man, right? I'm turning my life around. This is it. This is my turning point. And then his world comes crashing in when the love of his life suddenly and abruptly tells him no, and she doesn't give him a reason why. And so now the thing that really was the launching point of his change and his potential of really becoming something great, which, you know, not her fault. Like, no one single person should be what your personal progress depends on, right? But she was his launching point, and he was just starting to launch. So then it all comes crashing down before he can even establish something good in himself. And then he gets thrust into the throne. This isn't gonna go well. Like, I don't see a good future for Orso. I see us getting a spiral into the ground kind of arc for his, I don't see things ending well for him. I see him kind of maybe not following the exact same path of his dad, but I don't see him having a happier end or a happier life than his dad had, right? Like, it doesn't feel like that to me. I mean, anything could happen in these books. But it is Abercrombie, so predicting tragedy doesn't feel like an unsafe bet. Leo is a character that I grew to love. He was probably in the beginning of all the characters, he was probably the one that I was the least convinced by at first, but he ended up having a lot of depth to him. I really don't see a happy ending for him either, honestly. Again, tragedy is like, it's an easy bet to make for these types of books, but it doesn't, I don't see a happy ending for him, but I do hope that I'm wrong. Zuri is another character that I'm really interested in. She's an eater, right? Feels like it. Because, like, the eaters, they get the beauty package, right? Like, they get the spa day package where they have the awesome teeth, the awesome hair, the awesome skin, is there something about their eyes too? I don't remember. I have a very bad memory. But the eaters, they always have, like, the beauty package. And I feel like Zuri got the beauty package. I don't know. Do you know what I mean? I feel like, and there was enough mentioning about her teeth, I think. I don't know. I'm looking out for bandages. I'm waiting to see her clothes slip and find a bandage under there or something. She could be Logan's daughter. I don't think we never found out whose daughter she was, right? We never found out, like, who she belongs to. Could be Logan. I don't know. What do I know? Clover is another character that I love. He was so fascinating. I love all his perspective. I love everything we get from Clover. Why do you have to kill Wonderful, though? Well, I mean, it was a great scene. It was shocking. It was so abrupt. I wasn't prepared for it. I can't believe we lost Wonderful like that so fast. It was so fast. I mean, he's hilarious. He's unpredictable. He's resourceful, using that body to, like, in the battle. He speaks his mind always. It was just such a shock. It was like, in a second, it was done. I'm still in shock. I can't believe, I'm not surprised that somebody that my nostalgia is attached to, so one of the oldies, dies at the end, but I just didn't see it coming. Anyway, this could go in a lot of directions. There's a lot of stuff that could come from the next book. I mean, it's called The Trouble with Peace, right? Post-industrialization, new leader on the throne. It's called The Trouble with Peace. So there's some intrigue there. I feel like each character, there's a clear direction that I can see them heading in, and it's all negative. But at the same time, it's a pretty open road. You know, it could go in a lot of directions. We still have that prophecy that I don't know, or I don't know. Like, who's the owl? You know what I mean? Like, the prophecy of the animals. Who's the owl? Do you know? Because I don't know. I have a lot of questions. I'm not much of a theorizer, but I am very, very excited for book 2. I've overloaded my January TBR. The Trouble with Peace is on it, but it'll either be read at the end of January or early February. It was my favorite thing that I read in December, and I'm just like dying to know what's gonna happen next with these characters. I really do think that this is my favorite Abercrombie book. Anyway, like I said, I'm recording this about a week and a half after I finished it, and I'm half done with a Malazan book right now. That was the next thing I picked up. So my head is full of other names and other plot points and other dark world things that are happening. So I feel confident that I've missed something important that there was to talk about. So feel free to continue talking with me in the comments of this video. I'm very, very, very excited to continue, and it will be happening soon. But please do keep chatting with me in the comments. I post videos every Tuesday and Thursday on this channel, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday on the main channel, which is linked in the description of this video. I'll see you again soon. Bye.